Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order for the Committee of a Whole meeting of the Board of Education, March 5th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. in the boardroom of the Administration Building at 70 Conover Road, Colts Neck, New Jersey. Mr. Maresca, can I please have a roll call?
Yes, you may. Mrs. Cameron?
Here.
Mrs. Horowitz?
Here.
Participating remotely, thank you. Mr. Arrico?
Here.
Mrs. Ramirez? Not present. Mr. Rignetta?
Here.
Mr. Scales?
Here.
Mr. Scarpa? Here. Mrs. Volpe?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great, thank you, Vince. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, this meeting has been duly advertised in the Asbury Park Press and is scheduled of meetings dated January 16, 2025, notice of which has been filed with the Deputy Clerk for Colts Neck Township, and the requirements of posting of notices have been met. If everybody can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, good evening again, everybody. At this time, I want to open the floor for comments for all attending constituents. If you'd like to get up, please state your name and address for the record, and you may do so at this time. Okay. All right, since we don't have any comments, we're going to close public comment. And we are moving on to our information items. If everybody could take note of number 1 under the information items. And then we will roll right into the action items for approval tonight. We have 7 of them tonight. I would like to read a statement about number 7 first, and then I will open it up to questions or comments for that time. Okay. I'd like to thank Mr. Robert Scales for his work and leadership as our policy board chair. He has spent hours drafting this resolution so that our position on Title IX is clear. I'd also like to thank all the gentlemen on this board who have never wavered in their commitment to defend women's rights and especially our daughters' rights. They have stood firm on their position to protect women's private spaces, our sports, and our dignity. For this, we are grateful, and I thank you. With that being said, I urge Governor Murphy to comply with all federal laws, to uphold Title IX, and to avoid any loss of federal funding. I'd like to have Mr. Scales now start us off with part of the resolution.
Thank you. Colts Neck Board of Education urges the State of New Jersey and the NJSIAA to affirm compliance with federal executive orders regarding fairness in women's sports. Whereas the Colts Neck Board of Education is committed to ensuring fairness, safety, and equal opportunities in athletics for all students. And whereas the board recognizes the importance of maintaining the integrity of women's sports and protecting the competitive balance in accordance with Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972. And whereas President Donald J. Trump has issued executive orders and policy directives aimed at preventing biological males from competing in women's sports, reinforcing the principle that female athletes should have a fair playing field. And whereas the board acknowledges that executive orders must be codified into law and stands ready to enact newly drafted policies that implement these directives in full compliance with federal law.
And whereas the board is mindful of its fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of Colts Neck and recognizes that Governor Phil Murphy has a record of vexatious litigation in our courts, which has resulted in the blatant waste of state tax dollars, and furthermore stated his unwillingness to comply with federal law. And Whereas, in an effort to uphold the financial integrity of this district and avoid unnecessary legal expenditures, the board will implement these policies upon confirmation that the state of New Jersey is in compliance with federal law. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Colts Neck Board of Education will formally adopt policies in accordance with the executive orders issued under the Trump administration regarding fairness in women's sports, standing prepared to implement them once the state meets its legal obligations. And be it further resolved that the board reminds Governor Phil Murphy and the NJSIAA that they are not above federal law and strongly encourages the administrations to comply with these legal mandates to avoid unnecessary financial and legal burdens on the taxpayers and school districts. And
Be it further resolved that the board believes allowing biological males to compete in girls' sports may disadvantage the biological female students by hindering their ability to achieve their athletic goals, which could in turn impact their academic progress and discourage their continued participation in sports. And be it further resolved that the board affirms its commitment to protecting opportunities for female student athletes and ensuring compliance with federal and state law while upholding the values of fairness and competitive integrity. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Township Committee of Colts Neck, our state and county legislative representatives, Governor Phil Murphy, the New Jersey Commissioner of Education, the NJSIAA, the Office of the President of the United States, and other relevant stakeholders. This will be adopted this 5th day of March 2025 by the Colts Neck Board of Education. I just don't want to make it clear, this resolution was put out over a week, and every single board member had the opportunity to review it and put input as they saw fit. So at this time, I'd like to go back to the action items for approval. And yes, if anybody would like to comment or have any questions on any of the action items, including the resolution, you're welcome to do so at this time.
Yeah, I would just like to thank Member Scales for putting this together, a concise resolution once again, and for being so open with everybody on the board for adding their critiques and adding their ideas to it as well. And I would say even more openness to asking us to write our own adage to this, and you helping make it more precise for us. Even though, whether we're on the policy committee or not, as board of a whole, you're open to all of us. Thank you again so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate the same from the point of communications. I think Mr. Scales did an excellent job in communicating this out to the full board early and often. He certainly provided the opportunity for feedback. Feedback was received and implemented, and it's a good example of a cohesive working environment that has set the standard for this board and future boards to come. So thank you, Mr. Scales, for that work.
Here, here.
I'd like to thank Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, for signing this executive order and for all fairness in sports.
Right.
And it's the way it should be.
Here, here.
Second that.
Anybody else? Okay, I apologize, I went out of line, so I'm going to make a motion. A motion to move these items 1 through 7 at this time.
Motion.
Can I have a
second.
Okay, Phyllis Campbell.
I think Mr. Regnetta is the second because you placed it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Vinnie, yep.
Okay.
Okay, can I get a roll call?
Yes. Action item number 7. Mrs. Cameron.
Yes.
Mrs. Horowitz. Remote.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Rico.
Yes.
Mr. Regnetta.
Yes.
Mr. Scales.
Yes.
Mr. Scarpa.
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carried.
Great, thank you. All right, if we could just take notice of the communications listed under there, and then we will move right into our board liaison reports. We will start with Mrs. Horowitz, who will be speaking virtually on Parent Advisory Committee.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So the Parent Advisory Committee, we have our meeting set up for Tuesday the 25th at 7 p.m. and Wednesday the 26th at 10 a.m. Emails were sent out by Dr. Garibay yesterday to all the parents who attend, so we should have that at the end of the month. We'll be good.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Can you roll right into the PTO?
Yeah, of course. So the gala is, as everybody knows, is right around the corner. RSVPs were due on Monday. They are still accepting late entries, so just send them in if you haven't already done so. The readathon is still going on until Friday, and as of earlier today, when I checked, nearly 164,000 minutes have been read. Maybe I read that wrong, but that's incredible. And over $43,000 have been raised, which is a huge achievement. The book swap was today, and that was also a big success, with 1,200 donated to the elementary school and 2,000 donated to the primary school. The remaining books, about 700, will be donated to the Friends of the Colts Neck Library. I know my son came home with a ton of new books and was thrilled, so it was a great event today. Spirit wear is available for purchase. You can get it right on their website. There's some new attire to check out. And lastly, the PTO's general meeting is Wednesday, March 12th at 6 p.m. in the admin building. This is a great opportunity to hear all of the events and everything that they have planned coming in the coming months.
Great. I'd just like to add something to that, Sarah. Mr. Alan Ryan, he is a member of our community. He reached out to me about a week ago with a generous donation of encyclopedias to add to our library. So he has made that donation to our district, and I want to publicly thank him for always keeping our students at the forefront of his intentions. So if you're listening, Alan Ryan, thank you so much. We do appreciate your donation. Okay, moving on to the Colts Neck Township School Newsletter, Mrs. Camera.
Okay, Brian and I are excited to share that our first Board of Ed newsletter was sent out via email on Tuesday, February 25th, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. So thank you to everyone who took the time to read and share your thoughts. We are grateful for the community's support and enthusiasm. We look forward to growing this initiative with fresh ideas and engaging content in the months ahead. One of our goals is to expand the reach of our newsletter to more residents, including our seniors, which Kevin, thank you, is going to be taking the initiative on that. Families without school-age children, and those whose children attend private schools or beyond the K-8 district. So to help keep everyone informed, we brainstormed and are considering creating a sign-up link. We like to work with Mr. Capasso, where other community members can just opt in for updates. So we'll, post more details as we get them. To continue improving our communications, I will actually be taking a professional development day in mid-March, focused on Canva and S'more. And these tools will not only enhance my work professionally, but will also help strengthen our outreach efforts here on the Board of Ed. So I'm looking forward to putting these new skills to good use. And as always, we appreciate your support and engagement. We'll be kicking off the spring edition with Vinny as the next featured Board of Ed member in the spotlight. So thank you, Vinny.
Great, thank you very much, Mrs. Camera. We are going to move on to the Colts Neck Township School Arts, Sports, and Extracurricular Activities. Mr. Regnetta?
Thank you. Looks like T-ball and baseball registration has closed. So if you're anybody who's still looking to sign up, I would reach out to them directly on from coltsnecksportsfoundation.com. Each sport has their own page, and each sport has their own contact. The seasons both start Saturday, April 5th. So good luck to all who are participating, especially the softball preseason clinics have started. So good luck to all of them. And also the flag football season is upon us. I'd like to announce that member Brian Scarpa and I will be coaching together, our sons, at the 4th grade level. So and we did it last year, and so we're looking forward to doing it again. Hopefully have a little bit better season this year. We were defeated last year, very defeated last year, but it's all in good fun, and we're looking to have fun with all the kids and parents as well too. So we had the draft last week, and so everyone listening now, if you guys have signed up for flag football, look out for your coaches to reach out to you guys for the first practice. The spring musical for Cedar Drive Middle School will be Friday, March 21st and at 7 p.m. and Saturday, March 22nd at 2 p.m. And the Conover Road Elementary band concert and choir concerts will be April 1st at 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. Thank you. And thank you, Vice President Phyllis, for asking me to be the next spotlight in the newsletter. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Regnetta. Moving on to the Colts Neck Township Committee, Mr. Scarpa and Mrs. Camera, you're more than welcome to both speak.
Okay. So the Township Committee has revised its public comment policy, now responding immediately to residents' concerns and questions. There was a proclamation. Mayor Buss declared March as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. Michelle Batista was recognized for her advocacy, receiving certificates from both the Township Committee and the Assemblywoman Margie Donlin. The designated day to wear blue is the first Friday of March, known as Dress in Blue Day, and this will fall on March 7th. And I encourage our community to wear blue in support of those affected by colorectal cancer. And I personally want to thank Michelle, who continues to spread awareness. There's a affordable housing hearing scheduled for Friday, March 7th at 9 o'clock at the Monmouth County Courthouse, and the town is objecting to parts of the agreement. And during public comment, I introduced the first issue of our newsletter and distributed copies to committee members and the public. So thank you to Dr. Garibay for printing hard copies.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Scarpa, do you have to add anything?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, great. The Colts Neck Township Senior Citizens, Mr. Walsh.
I'm excited that a newsletter is being sent to the senior citizens via Dr. Garibay. Thank you for sending that to our senior citizen president, Mr. Chabelle. And they're invited to Matilda the Musical, Junior, on March 20th at 1 p.m. So it's a dress rehearsal, and I think you're going to have a good turnout on that day. So I'm excited that our seniors are going to really participate and see our kids at their best. And the musicals are fantastic. I'm looking forward to opening night on the 21st. So thanks again, Doctor, for reaching out to, so they all got it, Phyllis, all the seniors.
Excellent, thank you.
It's in the newsletter right here. Speaking of seniors, there's a great program I like to, inform them about. I'm sure they may know, they may not know. It was brought to my attention by Board Member Scarpa and Dr. Garabay's colleagues. The program is basically called Stay New Jersey and reimburses up to half of the property taxes for eligible applicants, which is great. It freezes their property taxes, and they're eligible up to $13,000 with the cap at $6,500. So next year, Ange, our property tax gets frozen. So great information with the tax burden, everything going up. This is a great, one of New Jersey's few programs that actually works. It's right here. It's really going to help our residents, so hope all the seniors take advantage of it. It's fantastic.
That's great
So
news.
it was shared with our seniors via Dr. Garibay. And that's it.
Okay, great, Mr. Walsh. Moving on to Naval Weapons Station Earl. Jessica's not here tonight, but Mr. Scarpa, if you can pick up with that.
Sure. Ms. Ramirez and I met earlier this week to discuss our go-forward strategy for our work with the Naval Weapons Station. We do have an invitation out there. We're working on an invitation out there to meet up with them to see what their current needs are at and where they would like to go going forward. We would also like to extend an opportunity to use the new platform of our newsletter to our Naval Weapons Station students. We would like to highlight, we're offering up the opportunity to highlight one or two students should they become aware or should they be interested in that platform. So we're looking forward to extending that platform and using this as an opportunity to better our relationship and continue to explore its possibilities. We do anticipate other opportunities for the town that can be born out of the weapons station. So more to come, but Ms. Ramirez had a report, but I'm sure she'll carry it up with our report next week, at next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scarpa. state and county school boards, that would be me. Just a reminder, it's pretty much coming close to the deadline for your financial disclosure forms. Please make sure everybody on the board has handed those in. I'm assuming everybody satisfied the New Jersey School Board training courses. And lastly, I'm sure you all received this in the mail. This is the workshop invitation for 2025. It's just been announced for October 20th through the 23rd in Atlantic City at the Convention Center. And the registration, I believe, starts April, yeah, it's right on there, April 1st. There's an early bird special, if anybody wants to take that into consideration. It's all written there, and I know Dr. Garabay is motioning to add something. Yeah.
Just as a reminder for returning and new school board members, registrations go through Danielle DeMayo, and we usually do the group rate so that there's if there's for
A decent amount of
decent
people.
amount of people.
How
and things
many
like
is the
that.
group
So
rate for again?
I think it's for 20 or more. I want to say it's, so it's a pretty
20, oh, for up to 25.
up to
So for
25.
up to
Yeah.
25.
So it's a group rate, and Danielle DeMayo usually moves forward with that. So if
Okay,
you
great,
are
thank
going
you.
specifically registering, you just have to do that for to put in for reimbursable expenses.
Okay, we are going to start the committee of a whole work session at this time. I'm going to call Mr. Robert Scales to start with his ad hoc Affordable Housing Committee report.
Great, thank you. So moving right along, great momentum continued from last meeting. Dr. Garibay was able to provide us with a listing of how many non-public students we have. Do you want to touch on that, how you derive that number? I don't know the science behind it, but whatever you did was fantastic, so.
Well, thank you, Mr. Scales. We are required, or we track our non-public school students to transportation, because as per New Jersey laws, the students' parents who are receive or choose to have their students go to non-public schools are entitled to either aid in lieu payments, or we provide transportation for them. So that is actually managed for us by Freehold Regional High School District, and the forms that they filled out, they actually acquire from the non-public schools themselves, and they bring it back to their transportations, and then it's all processed that way. So that's how we get our formula. It's through non-public schools. Now, is it possible that not every student is represented in that count? It is possible, but it is a very close one that we actually use for not just state reporting, but we also use for our Title I counts, our annual ESSA applications as well for outreach to non-public schools.
That's excellent. And so that'll allow us to do is essentially create version 2 of our one-pager that we had created a couple meetings ago. And that'll give us, again, more further data to remove another estimate of non-public students. Again, there's, no percentage that's a guarantee.
Bless you.
Bless you, as with everything. But what it'll do is it'll cement a foundation for us to then say, okay, well, we know that, out of the 200 non-public students that we have in town, how many of that, is a ratio of the public students that are coming in. So it'll allow us to remove some of the numbers. As you were aware, the numbers that we generated were just assuming that 100% of the students that come into those units attend the public school. We wish they would, but we know how things will work out. So we had a couple more responses from the community as well to provide some updates on some of the equations that we were using to equate to, I showed you that it was the NJ.com that I got some information. We got some information from Forbes, information from just the government agencies on affordable housing. So it allowed us to get those percentages to start essentially an equation and an algorithm. So it's updated the minute I get some information from any constituents, and then anyone from the board as you come forward with any more information that you're hearing. But again, what it's doing, again, if we would all we have to decide where we want to post this so the public has access to it all the time. So that's just a discussion point for today as well too, is that where can we post it and then also receive comments from this document, because rather it's just me going on the community page and sending that out, which is not necessarily to all constituents in town, because not everyone has Facebook, as we saw. But again, what it does is it's giving us a firm base. Now we have, okay, what we expect the tax revenue to be, and then it'll allow us to then prepare. Dr. Garibay, you also said a great idea about, talking to some of the other administrators to see if there's a blueprint that we could draft of what a reconfiguration of school would look like. So again, another proactive approach for us to say, hey, listen, we know that the middle school has X amount of students and X amount of room, which I put on the sheet as well. So, instead of 6, 7, and 8, does that change to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 5, 6, 7, 8, like other towns do? So again, I'm very satisfied with the results so far, because we've got more information that we had previously. What it also did is a Mr. Chris Puglisi had reached out to me from the Affordable Housing Alliance. They're very similar to what we had gone to for Soldier On, right? It's more of it's an affordable housing committee that is designed to help towns introduce affordable housing on that one-to-one basis. And as we all, are trying to do, is try to avoid overdevelopment in the town, but there's only so much that we can do as a school board. So he has offered to come in and present to the board to just teach and inform us a little bit more on how towns decide affordable housing and what sort of the development of affordable housing is behind the scenes as well. There's a lot that I think we could learn from it, whether or not it's by Zoom or he can come in for 15 minutes. But what I'll do is I'll introduce him to the board, and then you guys can all have satellite conversations with him if you want to learn a little bit more about this alliance. But again, I think, we've got great momentum, because what it's doing is it's created a little bit more of a buzz. I think affordable housing looks a little bit more, sexy in town, and people are actually coming out of the woodwork. It's, people are pretty passionate about it, and there's a lot that people need to learn, myself included. So what this is doing is just allowing to advance things so we are better prepared, and then I can take any information that I learn from the field as I educate myself, and then come back and present it to all of you as well. So kudos to the idea of the subcommittee, but I think within the first couple meetings that we've had, we've had some pretty amazing advancement of where we need to go. I hope I'm wrong, right? I hope I'm wrong about the number of students that are coming. I hope I'm wrong about the tax revenue, because what that means is that the tax revenue would be increased and it would be a lower amount of students for us. But, as the town advances, we'll keep updating this, and I'll keep updating you with the committee report as well. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much for your time. Okay, moving into advocacy and government relations. Obviously, we touched on the resolution. On February 25th, Governor Murphy touted record high funding for K through 12 districts in his budget address. Yet we've just learned that Colts Neck has suffered a severe blow under his state aid plan. We lost about, I believe it's $179,000, 4.9% cut, one of the largest cuts to a district in New Jersey. It's very disappointing and disheartening how Colts Neck always gets the shaft. I'm assuming because it's a conservative town, and that's his way of punishing us, and that is my sole opinion. I've yet to hear anything from our county officials, along with Senator Vin Gopal, on how to combat these losses and what their plan is to advocate for this district. I reached out to Dr. Garibay last week and discussed inviting Mr. Gopal to sit down and discuss these pressing issues in a closed meeting. These issues will include the cut to our state funding, the recent executive order signed by President Trump with regards to banning men in women's sports, recognizing there is only 2 genders, male and female, and how this district would uphold these orders regardless of Governor Murphy's disapproval. This district will not risk losing federal funding, and we will remain steadfast with regards to protecting women and girls' rights in every aspect of education. Governor Murphy also said he needed to support a new priority which is working with districts across New Jersey to ban cell phones from all K through 12 schools. I do not support or condone the banning of cell phones in any school district, and I will continue to support the rights of parents in regards to cell phone usage. President Trump also put an end to all DEI and federal agencies initiatives across the country, and I also support that executive order. Once we meet with Senator Gopal, I'm not sure how long that will take to set up a meeting. I will certainly report out what his plan is to hopefully advocate for Colts Neck School District. Moving on.
Just a quick comment, if you don't mind. I think it's good what you're bringing up, too, and I think it's good for our residents to understand, as well as the reduction in state funding. So these are not actual, like, common sense measurements, right? They're algorithms. So they're referred to as the Robin Hood algorithm, right? So, for example, the tax revenues in Colts Neck went up substantially, right? So there's going to be a large increase in revenue to the town. So that trips this algorithm. And that algorithm then says, well, there's enough funds coming from the local town where we can pull back some of our state funding. But if you think from a common sense perspective, what am I working towards, right, from the Affordable Housing Subcommittee? What is our town looking at? An influx of infrastructure, an influx of more students. So the last thing an administration should be doing is mandating an affordable housing mandate, number one, and then number two, taking money away when we need more money, right? If they're going to require us to build in town, then they are required to give us more money. If we don't get more money from them, that's coming from the school budget. So as you know from the Finance Committee, and what we'll need to do a balanced budget is we have to find the funds from somewhere else to balance that budget, right? So they're actively taking money away from the school and forcing us to build housing in town. So just wanted to highlight that for everyone too, because it breaks it down a little bit more if you think about it from a common sense perspective. So
Great. Thank you for your viewpoint. Thanks.
Dates with no funding.
Yeah. Well, we have about 10 months to go, so, okay, moving on. We will give the floor to Mr. Walsh for Buildings, Ground Safety, and Security.
Okay, I brought up concerns of lighting at Cedar Drive Middle School, and I had a concern about lighting at Cedar Drive Middle School, insufficient, and as a result, a study was commissioned by Mr. Marasco. And the cost of the study was substantial for Cedar Drive School, which is $10,800, which is, I find, extremely ridiculous to spend $10,000 on a study without any work being done whatsoever. I come from the school of corporate side, security. I manage a budget of $2 to $3 million. Construction projects, we have vendors come in. We get free estimates. A part of those estimates to determine what the actual costs are going to be, included engineering cost, whatever associated contractors are needed for that project are included. It's free. My belief as chair of Building and Grounds is to have a different attitude towards projects that don't require studies. If studies are required, if they're very complicated, I'll be in agreement with it. For instance, demographic study for affordable housing. Cost, example, for Cedar Drive Middle School. Project manager, $221 an hour. They want 2 hours. Electrical engineer, 33 hours to walk around the Cedar Drive Middle School, which is a small parking lot, at $189 an hour. Junior electrical engineer, I don't know what that means, 33 hours. Long story short, absolutely ludicrous. I want to protect our taxpayer, be efficient with any projects that are conducted in the school district, working in partnership with Dr. Garibay and Vince Marasco. They have a job to do, and they do it well. They do it by state statute. Any bids that are required for $44,000 and above by law has to go, it has to go out for bid. If we can do anything that can save the taxpayer money, for example, reaching out to vendors and contractors who need work in our county, who need work in Colts Neck Township, who live in township and pay taxes, so be it.
That's right, we'll wait for Mr. Scarpa. Okay.
Yeah, so, thank you very much, Mr. Walsh. So to be clear, this is to commission a study, and to Mr. Walsh's point, now the study does not include the actual work to do the projects. So if we have the need to supply lighting, in this case, it appears that there might be some element of need at the different schools, we are looking for the opportunity to pursue it via a professional and licensed and approved contractor in that space at that time. So the interest is not to pursue forward with a study, but to move forward and to not waste taxpayer dollars in this space and go towards an approved electrician and vendors to support the product should they get the bid. That's the general discussion on the table.
Any other comments on it? I agree with both of you. I do not see the reason to go out for a study on something like that. That's an enormous amount of money to have those services when we could use that money, like I said, to get a free estimate and see where we are from there. So I agree with.
Just to conclude, it may not be a priority this year with the budget season upon us. We may have higher priorities that focus on academics, curriculum, teachers. That's just an example of a project that I would like to look at in a different approach as a chair of a building and grounds.
Yeah, I understand, Mr. Walsh. I agree. The lighting is definitely a concern to me, but I'm committed to the zero tax impact, and at this time, that will probably have to be on the back burner for a possible project for next year. And then we'll just keep up with the maintenance on the lighting at this time. Yeah.
Vince, did they give any explanation why they needed 33 hours to walk around the parking lot?
That's a good question.
We haven't had any follow-up questions or meeting with them. This
I
was
understand
their
they have to see it at
initial, so-
nighttime, and then I guess during twilight, but 33 hours.
I could
So
go
they
back
sit in
and
the
find
parking
out
lot?
for you if you'd
They
like.
sit in the parking lot the entire
Again,
time?
our approach from the start of this and why we presented a proposal could be one of many. There's many firms who do this kind of stuff.
Right.
But was that a concern was raised to us, and the approach we took was, well, how do we address this concern in a professional manner? I am not a engineer. We don't have engineers in-house. So to properly study the situation requires sometimes professional services to come in and look at something. That was the fundamental approach that we took. The concern was raised, and it's a valid concern. So how you go about it is decisions to make. You don't have to use it.
No, if we bring up the issue again to go forward, if we can have like more detail from them why they need to do that, or any other details.
Well, if you,
yeah.
we could talk after the meeting. If you want to
Yeah.
explore it more, I'll set a meeting with any company you want.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Garibay, I wanted to have some.
Yeah, and I think that was the point. It was a case of saying here was one way it could be addressed, right, if we wanted to go in that direction. But based on the meeting that we had with the Ad hoc Finance Committee, the consensus was from the group that we're going to go in the direction of a commercial getting vendors and to look at it differently, to see if that's a different cost for the board, and looking at it and what those recommendations are. In the interim, I also don't want to be remiss in mentioning that in the interim, Mr. Moretta and his team of maintenance people went and did change out some of the headers in an attempt to kind of brighten the lights and throw a larger light. It doesn't add lighting, it changes the existing lighting. So there are changes there. I myself went over and sat in front of a parking lot when had the lights go on and saw, yeah, it does look a little bit brighter. It doesn't add lights where lights are not. So that's the one thing that we keep doing. It did change the lighting because those are original lamp posts from 1964. So those lights have been changed out before, and I think I explained in an email with regard to someone I think had raised the question about regarding the ESIP. They weren't eligible because we had tried to make them brighter in the past by making them to LED. The only lights that could only change in lighting that could be addressed through the ESIP was if we had not already tried to go LED. Because we had already tried to do that to add lighting and conserve energy in those areas, they weren't eligible for the project. So any changes we make at this point in time are part of it. But we did also say that there's opportunities there. Our fields are used multiple times. The fields that are adjacent right there, they're used by town and different organizations. So when the time comes and when we go through the process of looking at, proposals from vendors, now at this point that's the direction that we are going in, that we can look to say, are there opportunities for cost sharing and other things that we do based on it being a community resource as well. Especially with the opening, we leave the tennis courts open. Maybe that's a draw, right? The pickleball and tennis courts draw. Maybe there's an opportunity for some type of shared services that we can look at, say, adding lighting to keep the places open for the community beyond the school hours, because that's what we always look at for things. It's during the school hours, right? And then the parking lots at nights, except for in the winter when we have basketball and different things. But the school events, except on occasions where they're night functions, are over by 5 o'clock or 5:30. So everything after that is town use, with the exception of plays that go on or things like that that are nighttime functions. So the focus has always been in prior years when we've been looking at, to your point, it being a priority, is that we're looking at it with regard to it being a school property where the majority of the time school-related events are over by dark. Except for basketball games and things that go on sometimes in the winter, which will go until 5 or 6 o'clock. So we'll proceed and then provide the board an update. Yeah. Yep. Through rentals. Okay. All right.
Because I don't know if is there laws on how much lighting we have to have?
So there's recommended spaces. That's what, in terms of the spaces, there are standards of lighting that I'm assuming an electrician will know. We actually have the original study from 1963 with the parking lot with the recommendations there. Mr. Moretta has confirmed with the person who provided the proposal, as well as with our engineer that we worked with for the lighting expert, I should say, that we worked with through our ESIP, that those standards are not in place anymore. They don't meet today's standards. So what's in place does not meet the lighting standards. It wouldn't have passed an inspection. It wouldn't have been approved. So we know that, but because it's existing, there's a grandfathering in. We don't have to update those types of things. So is there a standard? There absolutely is for public spaces and schools and things.
Yeah, because Colts Neck in general, we don't have lights anywhere.
No.
But that's by design.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they think about it. There's neighborhoods behind there. That might be an issue for the people who live there.
Many years ago, we explored getting electronic signs.
Yeah.
And that was not
residents
received because of the lighting.
Yep.
So there's something that for consideration, from a
And
consideration point of view.
the local police ever make a comment about?
So we've never necessarily had a complaint, with regard, I don't want to say in terms of dark, with the exception of being, wow, it's kind of dark out here, for the times that we're outside in the dark. But that said, there are events coming up that, and Mr. Maresco pointed out, we're going to partner with them because they do have the portable lighting, that they'll use sometimes at Bucks Mill for the nighting events and things. We're going to look to add some additional lighting for those night functions that are coming up, right? And those are short term. If lighting is a priority, those are some short term remedies.
Yep, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Walsh, do you have anything on number 1 under buildings and grounds, or just the installation of the pergolas?
I think that it is going to be funded by the PTO Legacy.
Yep.
There are questions concerning permits and the costs costs associated with the permits.
Also, the placement of the pergolas. I believe JCP&L had to get back to Cedar Drive Middle School, make sure. What, you Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are, yes, it's mostly getting funded through the PTO legacy grant. There are some additional costs that we're discovering that are having to do with landscaping to, grade a base, et cetera. So those we're in discussion and we're addressing. There's some additional minimal costs that will be passed on to complete the permitting application through the town. A schematic has to be drawn up, and that's another cost burden.
Would this be ready by the 60th anniversary?
Well, that's what we're, yes.
I was just
went
gonna
out
say
and
that.
procured the one pergola for the courtyard of CDMS. So it's just a matter of now we're bringing in an additional landscaper to give us a proposal on both spaces, but that's going to be the first
Great.
space that's going to get worked on.
And kudos to our student representative.
Yeah, Dr. Garibay just mentioned that Emmanuel Diener will be reporting out on the 19th on this project as well, so just so you're aware of that. Anything else, Mr. Walsh?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to communications. Mr. Scarpa? Okay. So you're good? Okay. Then we're going to skip right to curriculum. Mrs. Camera.
Okay, the first thing, I am going to defer to Sarah because this is her idea, so.
Thanks, Phyllis. So as some people on the board know, I'm involved with the Jewish Federation here in Monmouth County, as well as an organization called 3G, which was founded by grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. As a granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor myself, I always want to share any kind of opportunity for our younger generations to be able to learn more about the Holocaust. I understand from Dr. Garibay that we have a very strong Holocaust curriculum, but given the rise in anti-Semitism over the last few years, I think it could be incredibly impactful to invite a 3G speaker to share their grandparents' firsthand experiences of their survival and their strength. And I know a lot of other local school districts have already incorporated this type of program, and I wanted to see if that was something that we could potentially implement in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, you could just send me the invitation and send me the information, and I'd be happy to, excuse me, pass it along. And then we can look at it, and then, we're always looking for building up the robust, those multi-generational in the past, and all the, it's a really special and unique thing. What's actually going to be highlighted, our partnership with Change, is part of the, I don't want to give away all the surprises and the good things that are going to happen at the 60th, but it is something that we are going to feature because it is we're very proud of that experience that we provide for our students. So absolutely, just send me the information and I'll share it with Dr. Rigby and the staff there. Happy to.
Great, thank you.
Okay, the next thing is the JROTC program inquiry. So I'm going to defer also to Dr. Garibay, but my last correspondence with her was just about reaching out to our Colts Neck High School for some additional resources and maybe a possible curriculum for our middle school students. So now
Certainly. Thank you, Mrs. Camera. I've been in communication with Dr. Hazel and Dr. Donahue at the high school level. We are tentatively trying to set up a meeting between myself and Dr. Rigby and Dr. Reynolds next week. Potentially, our schedules are trying to kind of coincide, as well as when Major Penzak is available as well. So we're trying to get everyone in the same room. I'll keep the board updated when that date is set. Just so you know, the tentative budget, the ones that we've been reviewing in ad hoc, does include funding for not only a facilitator of an after-school program, but also program development. So it is in the current budget, both of those programs. Okay, or tentative budget, excuse me, the tentative budget development, excuse me.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the ST Math inquiry. Tomorrow, Dr. Erica Reynolds and Mrs. Tina Kennis, the district mathematics coach, have a meeting scheduled with a representative for ST Math. I'm really looking at this point, I'm really suggesting that we just pilot this program for our special education and Tier 1 students to help close the learning gaps. First of all, for cost, but also this program has the data backing it, that it has just phenomenal data. And so we can look at teacher feedback, and then we can consider expanding ST Math for all students if, based on that feedback. So for about 150 students, it's about $3,500 for the year. So that's about $23.33 per student, but they'll obviously get more information, which then we'll update the board at the next meeting. The digital resource inventory. Oh, of course.
May I add to that? Because the meeting was actually Monday. It said March 3rd, so it was Monday.
Oh, good, sorry.
And so I just want to, I want to definitely coincide and cross-reference some of that, because in terms of ST Math, we met with Lance Matus, who was the representative for our area. He provided us with quotes, and the numbers aren't matching what you're providing and stuff, so I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that as well. It is not a per student cost, it's by site license. So we would be required to purchase 2 site licenses regardless of how many children we have in the program. And those site licenses range from K to 3 and then 4 to 5. So 4 to 5, for those 2 site licenses, if we went and pilot it, and if for a full implementation, it would be, in fact, the $12,000 that was originally associated with it. And a pilot would be approximately, we would have to pay for, it would probably be about $2,500 to pilot it. They don't give away free pilots at this time. So it would be $2,500 to pilot program. They gave us the names of other Monmouth County districts who are using it. Currently, Marlborough, Manalapan, Spring Lake Heights, and Long Branch are the only 4 in Monmouth County who are using it. I would just like to caution with regard to those mix and blends with data and research. We certainly can look at it and bring it forward, but we use IXL Math. ST Math is strictly for mathematics and mathematics only, whereas IXL feeds from NWEA MAP, from math, language, arts, and science, and then develops individualized, lesson plans or individual learning plans for students. So this would be an additional program. Also, the other thing that was a little concerning with the representatives, and since we're in the CAL, was that they recommend for students, for effectiveness, we also look at the implementation. It's not just about the program, it's the recommended time that the vendors say should be online for that. And they recommend approximately 90 minutes of online time per week for effectiveness for students. So that's something we always look at when we're scheduling or picking programs, like how much is recommended by the actual vendors through the research and the development, is that it is a fully online program, and that there is a recommended minimum amount of time, whereas IXL is about 45 minutes per week, for that type of thing. But they did, and we can definitely get into the implementation conversations and things, and we want to bring back that information to the teachers to see if they're interested, and then we can provide that back to the board.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, in terms of the digital resource inventory, I had requested administration to complete a review of the current computer programs the district utilizes across all subjects, including data on the program usage, so you just kind of hit upon IXL. And hopefully possibly we have some programs that are underutilized, just so we can, make some better decisions for the budget.
I'm just going to leave it on. I'm sorry, I'm just going to leave it on for the sake of time. And yes, and what's reflected again in the proposal of the tentative budget right now is part of those efforts and work. I shared in my updates the work that was done in 2024. We can also break that down by cost, because you're going to have things like Savvis that are used throughout the K to 5 that are obviously going to have a per pupil cost that's lower in terms of usage and those usage. So about 3 or 4 years ago, we did a full technology audit, especially post-COVID, when everyone was grabbing everything free, and so many vendors were giving everything away for free, and then things weren't free anymore. So then we had to really hone in and say, okay, what did we find of value, what didn't we? So a few years back, and I'm happy to link that in or share that as well, that work that was done that we whittled away with, and what we've eliminated throughout the years, and really tried to hone in on, because while we definitely certainly want to provide a toolbox, right, for teachers to pick from, we also want to streamline the resources that are being used, because then we can measure true effectiveness and impact on student learning when you have a whole array of things that are being used for different purposes. You always ask yourself, in reflection of student performance, to what do we attribute those results? And if we have 5 teachers, it's about comparison of things. So we've actually tried to streamline the program so that there's more consistency even through the grade levels of what's being used. So a teacher or a student actually doesn't have to stop, drop, and learn another program as they're progressing through the grade levels. But we can, I'll update that for 2024, 25. The one from last year is has been in the updates, but I can continue to do that.
Great, and I definitely agree. Less programs that the students are utilizing more to really finish the program is better than just a little bit of everything.
Sure, exactly, yeah.
So yes, I definitely agree with that. Okay, so moving on to, our SAVIS program. So at the last Cal meeting, I believe, it was confirmed that our 3rd through 5th graders do not have the additional practice workbooks that accompany the SAVIS and Vision Math program. And Erica Reynolds had actually stated that teachers in grade 3 to 5 had expressed that they did not want the additional workbook. So however, as a parent, when I previously discussed this resource back when this is years ago, when my own children were in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, teachers that I asked at back to school night were completely unaware that this additional resource was even available. So, like I said, while this was several years ago, I find it concerning, and I'm kind of in disbelief that educators would not want an additional resource to support student learning, whether for benchmark or midterm review. The additional practice, just for parents even seeking enrichment opportunities or just extra support for struggling students, because what makes that additional workbook great is it has a sample problem for parents, because a lot of times the parents will say, I don't understand this new math. So I know Erica said parents have access to printing out these resources, but I know I wouldn't do that. I don't know if any of us would, and I can say that it is not the easiest, most user-friendly program unless you're somewhat trained in it to just go around and printing out the pages. So I'm just requesting, and maybe we could vote on this, that a survey be sent to parents and teachers in our 3rd through 5th graders to just gauge interest in providing this extra practice book, even if they just use it before the NJSLE testing. And the feedback could help the board determine if budgeting for the resource is a priority for our families and staff. It might not be, I might just think it's a great resource, but, I'd like that feedback.
Can I just add to that? Because in preparation for tonight. So I just want to make sure we can level set and go back to what Dr. Reynolds said at the presentation. There are 2 books that are used and as type of workbooks, Volume 1 and Volume 2, as part of the instruction. The students are doing all the work in all grade levels, K to 5, in those books. That's what is happening, okay? Those books are also available in the digital resource through the Chromebooks that are given. But there are tangible books. There is also something that is called the Practice Buddy, which we also have, and that teachers are using and students are using, in terms of the Practice Buddy, which is an online component to the program. At the K to 2 level, we have the additional practice workbook, okay? Because of the age differences and looking at what we had talked about, all the things that we had talked about, the additional practice workbook is something that has become almost like a regular homework, a practice, reinforcement of exercises at the K to 2 level, okay? The additional practice workbook is a component of the digital program that currently exists 3 to 5, as well as 3 days. When that additional practice workbook homework is assigned at the 3 to 5 level, and I'm sure as parents you've seen this, they are doing it online, right, in a math notebook. Nobody's inputting anything into a computer. Students have math notebooks that they're working in, okay, and so that is part of their homework. A teacher can decide based upon the individualized practice that a student has whether or not they need more homework or practice in either Volume 1 or Volume 2, whichever one they're working on. Some give the pages. It's very individualized. It's not a case where everyone, like when I went to school, everyone gets to do, you do even problems, you do odd problems. You do the problems based on the small group work that's being done, and that is either assigned through the Volume 1, Volume 2 work, the practice buddy, or the additional workbook. So the additional workbook, I think that another question that could be asked if we wanted to have, if you wanted to propose this way, is how many people are using the additional practice workbook at the K to 2 level that we already provide? Before we survey if you want this, let's find out if it's being utilized at the K to 2 level, the way it's happening, because there are so many different facets and personalized ways that parents are addressing. It's almost like we're telling them that they're using it. I understand it's additional practice, and I totally get everything and understand completely your perspective on it. It's an additional, thing that we don't provide in print. It is available, and if a child is assigned homework, they are just accessing it the same way you would access a book or anything online, and they're doing the work in a math notebook that they bring back and forth to the classroom teacher, if that's what's assigned to them. Or it could be something in the practice buddy, or it could be something in the volume 1 and volume 2. And when our teachers were provided professional development and training in Envisions math, they were told that they had those options to be providing. So I'm just lending that perspective as well to it. So I defer to whatever the board wants us to do, but I'm just giving that additional piece.
No,
So
I
with
like the
regard
idea
to
of surveying the K to 2 to see if they're using it. But I do think, at least from my experience when my children were in the 3 to 5th grade, a lot of times their homework was actually online, and it was not individualized. It was just assigned homework, 12 problems. I'm just basing it on my experience. And there are, we do have learners that might benefit from doing the homework with pen and paper versus the online version, so it just gives them the option. But really, it's just such a great resource as a study guide. Before benchmarks, nobody has to print out papers. They have this additional book at home that at least the parents now know, okay, my child's struggling with 15.4. I can go to 15.4. I see a sample problem of modeled, and I can help my child, because a lot of parents really have a problem with the way the math is taught, because it's not the way they learned. So it really is, I just think, a great communication for parents. And again, my idea is just to put it out to the community. Is there an interest? And if there's not, then I'm fine with that as well.
Do you feel it fair that we do the survey first for the K through 2? Would that be a fair start?
To see if they use it, absolutely.
Okay, would you be willing
Sure.
to do that as a preliminary route? And then we'll move on to see if it would benefit the older grades. I agree with you. Having the workbook, I know a lot of parents like that as versus the computer, but if it's not feasible or they're not going to use it, certainly we don't want to waste funds. So move on with the survey, and then we'll report back.
And as per the request of the board, you want to preview all surveys before they go out to the community,
Yes,
correct?
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
But not staff, you're fine with staff, with internally, it's just the community, because I think that's an internal
Yeah,
operation.
do you need to see what's written to the staff, or would you like to
I think that's
see-
an internal operation, if it goes out to the
Okay,
community,
I'm fine with that.
I think
Yeah,
that's
that's
fine.
fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Phyllis, you'll, when we get to policy too, policy 2330, you can click on that link too. You'll see there's new verbiage in there that Strauss Esme is asking to put in and recommending that kind of highlights like the communication that you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, for the Summer Bridge program, I'll defer again to Dr. Garibay for the update.
Turn my mic off, I'm sorry. So, yes, once again, the Summer Bridge is being proposed and developed and included within the working towards the tentative budget. It is there. It is on a scaled-back version. As of this morning, there were 90 responses for participation.
What was last year?
I want to say we had wound up with 120, 130, with about 100 regular attendees.
Okay, and when is the response, when is the deadline for that? Is that ongoing? They could just,
No, I think it's this week. I think it's over. I think it's
okay,
where
so
it is, yeah.
that number can definitely change then? Okay.
And it will, and we've had fluctuations. I mean, we've changed the program. We've adapted it based on what parent surveys were that were given at the end.
Okay.
We try to find that sweet spot between summer religious classes and football and all of the things like that happen, and also recognizing 4th of July. We try to find that sweet spot in between, so that's what we're looking to do.
And any knowledge, I know last year it has been something that the state actually gave the school a grant for, is that correct?
We actually applied, no, we actually applied, it was a competitive grant that we won. It was $138,000 that we applied for, and we
Oh,
got.
wow,
We
okay.
were the only district in Monmouth County that won that grant.
Okay.
So we were very proud of that. And then we funded it the first year with that. And then we went after another grant that was the high impact tutoring grant. And when you looked at the specs for that grant, we went after that grant again and we got that grant too. So it was grant funded, and then it was also co-funded with ARP funds. So it's been completely grant funded. This is the first year it's in the local budget.
Okay,
So-
and right now there have not been any grants, and obviously we're just.
I'm just watching and waiting and
constantly. Okay.
looking
So there's
constantly.
nothing we can do to help with that, that's just, and, like, there's nothing we should be looking at as well?
No, because I think that the specs of the grant, when the grant specifications come out from the state, they're looking for certain things to target certain student populations and growth and models and stuff, especially post-COVID, those things were available for us to look at. So we're always just looking at opportunities to supplement and provide services that don't fund on the budget, so yeah.
Okay, great, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to being a writer, we also had the wonderful presentation by Dr. Reynolds. And I did get some numbers today because we had a budget meeting before. So the program for K-2 is approximately $23,000, which an additional $3,000 for training. And then it would be the same for 3 to 5, another $23,000 with another $3,000 for training. So my suggestion for this program is to implement it incrementally. I think I had mentioned that before. We start with the K-2 for next year, and then as that second grade cohort is moving, it reduces, obviously, it kind of spreads out the finances over time as well as the training. And, I found just 3 advantages. So obviously it's reduced immediate financial burden, it's gradual teacher training, and it just really helps sustain the budget management. So, spreading the cost over multiple years and maintaining a balanced budget. And generally, when you're starting a new program, because it's new language, it's just a new way of doing things, it kind of makes sense to start with your youngest population, and then as that population is moving up, they're continuing with that program. So that's just a suggestion. It's more it's curriculum and finance. It kind of overlaps with both.
Yeah, and in preparation for tonight, and thank you for that, definitely, we are looking at our on-demand writing pieces. One of the things as the board, writing is a component of NJSLA. And as we've gotten into our data dives, writing is a place that continues to kind of hold us back a little. So that's why we even went out to a pilot. We knew that was something that we needed to look at very quickly. So in our on-demand writing pieces, I hear you, and I think that we can definitely have further conversations. At this point in time, know that the recommendation from the administration is to not to do the K-5, and that's because of the results we're getting on the on-demand writings. For example, like in our grade 4 pilot classes on-demand writing, whereas classes that are not in the pilot are, getting at or above grade level, 39%, 50, 58 and 35, we have 62 who are in the pilot. So we're seeing those immediate results in our writing, which I think is what we want to. And when we are doing programs, we certainly do want to. Professional development costs are going to be the professional development costs, whether it's in year 1 or year 2. They don't charge by teacher, they charge by consultant these days. So that cost, you're just going to be repeating the cost if you don't do it in 1 year shot. Plus, our teachers are working with it. So I do feel that it is something that they are seeing the benefits, and through articulations, I think we are hearing that teachers want this for across grade level. So in terms of cost, and as we're developing the budget together for curriculum and all across all areas, that would be an area that I would strongly advocate for maintaining that K-5 implementation for next year. We're ready for it. Our students need it, and I think when we look at these things, we look at it just like a security issue or any other issue. If it was something we want to handle immediately, this is an academic priority to increase our writing scores, so I wouldn't recommend delaying unless it was absolutely necessary to do so.
Okay, thank you for that. And the last thing, I guess, we were not, at least Dr. Reynolds never presented anything about the social studies program, so I was just asking you to give us a little bit of background, because it is again, over $20,000 in our budget, so just, want to learn a little bit about our program. Is it a new program? Is it something we've already been using? So I wanted to start there.
It is not a new program, so, but it's a newer program, to your point, it is a newer program, but it's the first time it's in the budget, because it was something that when we were looking to enhance our social studies program, again, that was a couple years ago, it was in 2022 that we started the process, and we had a committee, and teachers worked together at the K-5 level. They selected 3 programs that we went out to. For this pilot, we were actually able to secure free resources for all 3 programs. They were giving them away for free to pilot. At the end of it, we chose this one for implementation. Last year, to your point, was year 1 of the full implementation. We used stabilization aid to do that, which was that 1-year process that we used. We subsidized using that, as we talked about in finance. So this is the first year it's appearing in the budget. So that's why it looks like it may appear as a new program, but it is not a new program. Newer.
Yes.
Newer, to
Thank
your
you.
point.
And what were the programs you piloted? Just, do you remember, out of curiosity?
I do. TCI, Young Citizens, and Savis My World Interactive.
Oh, okay, so it was just 1 out of 2. You picked, it was just 2
TCI,
TCI's 1.
Young Citizens.
Oh, Young- okay,
Yeah,
got it. I
Young
didn't realize
Citizens,
that was-
and
okay,
Savis
Savis.
My World Interactive.
Okay,
Yes, those
thank
were
you.
the 3.
Yep, I was just
And we
curious.
have all the rubrics, we have everything from the pilot was presented to the board, I want to say in 2022.
Okay, great, thank
The
you.
Curriculum Committee, excuse me.
Right, so, yep, just, it was already approved, so thank you. That was what I
You're
was
welcome, of course.
interested in.
Okay, is that it for the curriculum portion? Okay. I didn't mean that rudely, I was just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to cut you off in any way. Okay, we are going to start with the finance part of our COW. Mr. Arico, you want to start?
Yes. So the 2025, 2026 preschool tuition rates, I believe it was approved, 8,300, and we have, that's from 9 a.m. to 3:15 p.m. in the afternoon, Monday to Friday. And the busing is 14, no busing? Okay.
It's not, it's 10 weekends. But well, so we're not going to be doing that transportation piece of it this year. And the reason because is twofold. We have in the past, based on spaces that we had available, because we are required to provide transportation for our preschool disabled students, okay? Where we have run into some issues regarding the length of those runs with some of our youngest youngest children, is that as students come in through the summer, we've had parents who have taken a tuition spot, and it's created a little bit of an issue regarding the length of runs and the volume of students on buses as we've had more preschool disabled students enroll in the district before the start of the school year. So a very strong recommendation from it really offsets, it doesn't bring in like a revenue, it offsets the cost of a run that's already being facilitated. So the recommendation this year was to not offer transportation as an issue. We had a limited seats anyway for it. There weren't many people that were able to take the option of transportation. So that won't be an option for them this year.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. The fiscal year 2026 state aid, I'll just go over those numbers real quick. Categorical transportation aid this year was $594,824. Categorical special education aid was $1,204,415. Categorical security aid this year was $131,095. Military impact aid, $1,523,650. And the total there is $3,453,984. The 2026 budget updates, we're still working towards a 0% tax increase for Colts Neck taxpayers. Brian, if you want to add anything.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, we continue to meet with the administration to go over our proposed budget for '26. We're working line by line item to appreciate any opportunities of efficiencies of scale. We are looking at, obviously, keeping a close eye on cost infrastructure as we proceed forward for this year as well as the next years. We are getting there. More meetings to come. We just had one a little earlier today. We'll continue to update the board as a whole as we proceed forward with our carve-out of numbers and better appreciation of anticipated expenses, especially due to the rising costs, potential infrastructure, due to the housing responsibilities coming our way for the next 3 years. That's all.
Is that it for finance?
Just one note of finance, as evidenced by Dr. Garabay's work with the Summit Bridge program, the board definitely wants to commend the work and the drive and the initiative to obtain grants. And that was a fantastic opportunity that you seized, and we appreciate that for the first few years. So a keen eye on opportunities and grants for the state is needed, and we appreciate the work that you did for the Summer Bridge program, because we do know that that is very well received by the kids and the parents. But thank you for the work on the initiation of grants.
Anything else? No? Okay. We will move on to policy. Mr. Scales.
Yeah, I could just give you a quick update, and then if you want to add anything, Dr. Garibay as well, but there's a large alert from Strauss Esme 234. On numbers 1 through 7, essentially what it's doing is it's clarifying the roles and responsibilities of the district, the administration, and then law enforcement. Kind of to your point before, Mr. Walsh, about being surprised about like something working from the state. I was surprised with these policies and surprised with the verbiage that was added in, specifically electronic surveillance and cooperation with law enforcement. In years past, cooperation from our standpoint was great, but the state did not have good cooperation with them. It's adding verbiage in here that allows us to understand fully what the police role would be if we need them, and what would happen if there's an incident in the school. So it substantially defines the roles and responsibilities, and God forbid if there was ever an emergency as well too. And well, yeah, do you want to comment on those first before I move to the others?
Yes, thank you. And as Mr. Walsh knows, there's an annual MOA, or Memorandum of Agreement with Law Enforcement, which is done every single year. And perfectly said, these policies and regulations really just put into place what is already required by these things. So these are all things that are not new. They are, but it basically pushes it into the MOA and any guidance for the MOA. So it links them together, which is really what it should be doing anyway. The MOA is, for those who might not know, it is a public document, but it is customized and reviewed by local law enforcement. I meet with the chief of police and the lieutenant for schools to review and make sure and see if everything's in accordance. Our district, I'm very proud to say, exceeds the bare minimum requirements of the MOA regarding communication. We do a lot of things that are beyond the expectations of what the minimum is that is required. The one point I will make about state aid, the numbers across the board in security, actually, safety and security actually increased a little bit throughout the state. And I know that the current board members, but in terms of advocacy, I actually testified in front of the Joint Committee for Public Schools about school safety issues and shortfalls that were throughout the state. So that was, there was a lot of advocacy. I actually did that twice, both this fall and last fall, to ask for more funding in that area specifically for schools, knowing that the board has always prioritized with administration, the safety and security, being with our SLEOs, our school safety security, the infrastructures. That's Colts Neck, and that's obviously our main concern, but on a larger scale, we wanted more state funding because there are districts that have to choose between this and that, and that's compromised, and every student, in my opinion, in the state of New Jersey deserves a safe and secure environment to learn, as do staff. So I was very pleased to see that increase that they committed to in terms of providing additional funding on schools through state aid for safety and security.
That's excellent.
So,
That being said, Doctor, we have a shared service agreement with our police department.
We do.
that clause?
We
And
do.
have boots on the ground, literally, police department is in patrolling our schools, so we have mandatory notifications, but they're there in real time.
That's true.
Excellent.
We're lucky to have our officers in our schools here.
Yep. Yeah, the student smoking was interesting. We're not using Lucky Strikes anymore. It's a lot of like smokeless tobacco. So I was shocked that they're still calling it student smoking. But what that was doing is it's enhancing the verbiage for, as the young kids say, zins, the pouches, the non-tobacco pouches. It enhances smokeless tobacco, the use of like vape pens and things like that. So specifically calling it out. And then before we move on to the others, the first one for HIB, what that does is that clearly defines when the authorities would take over. So from obviously following the chain of command, when we report an incident and then it comes to the board, then if authorities do need to be involved, again, it clearly defines the role that the actual administration has to take and then who takes over the investigation. And I thought that was a great update as well, too, because previously there was no really differentiation of when the authorities would be involved. So I thought that was great. So I don't know if anyone has any questions on any of these, but pretty standard. And then one question I had is that there's a lot of just like language updates in here, too, like just a lot of like capitalization. Is that common? Like we'll get an alert for just uppercase versus lowercase? Is
We
that-
will. Yes, and sometimes it's a number statute change
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
minor. We'll get an update for it. And sometimes the changes are significant in those minor change enough to just say, you know, we're just gonna adopt this the way it
Yeah.
is because there's so many minor, small revisions. It's easier just to take the
Yeah.
larger revision.
Yep.
And the way, in the process, and I've been working with Mr. Scales in it, everything in bold is new, everything to
Yep.
strike through is current and recommended for removal.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and just so you know, these policies have also gone to the building administrators who deal with, you know, at the building level with them for review. So if there's any feedback prior to March 19th with these possibly going, from feedback from the board or anyone has questions for first read on the 19th, those policies 1 through 7, I will certainly share that with Mr. Scales and the board ahead of time if there's any recommendations from the administration prior to first read.
Yep.
Okay.
Excellent. Any questions on 1 through 7 before we move on to good old homework? So Phyllis, did you want to pull it up so I can show you where that is? Do you have it? I have it. Oh, you do? Okay, cool. So if you read the, on the bottom, what Phyllis was asking before, on the regulation, the policy itself is standard verbiage, but if you look at the last paragraph on the regulation, which is different than the policy, the regulations for the administration, the policies for parents and things like that, in bold, it'll call out sort of like the roles of teachers and students and the actual communication that's not necessarily required but encouraged between actual instructors and parents. So that might help clarify some things as well too, but it doesn't specifically call out sort of, I would guess, what we were referencing is like the additional homework assignments and things like that. Like I don't think we would consider those homework then, right? Like if we're asking a child to use that extra book or if one teacher's not using it and another teacher's using it, they're not talking about consistency in that regard. But we wouldn't consider that homework, would we? We would consider that extra or...
Right, additional practice.
Okay. So I don't know if there's verbiage that you'd want to try to add into this. I mean, we could look at that as well too, but I just don't know what constitutes, again, homework versus extra instruction, but that's just my 2 cents on it.
Right.
But it was interesting to see like your comments versus what is on here. There is a specific call out on it, so if that helps at all. But
Okay, great. And you want me to talk
Yeah.
about the policy?
Yep.
So the previous board actually changed the homework policy, and I'm, you know, complimenting them. What was that? The regulation. Right, we're back to the regulation now aspect. And I do think, though, that I would like to make it a little bit less gray. It still is, where I would like to remove and this is something we can, talk about further, but the line that says, "Exceptions to this regulation shall be permitted based upon the unique nature of a teacher's program upon approval by the building principal or designee."
In the middle there, right?
Yes.
Okay, yep.
There have been parents who have contacted me just saying that they are not able to access the homework on the Google Classroom. That is right now the online platform that our school district is using. So I would like it changed really that teachers, will post the homework assignments to the Google Classroom or the online platform the school uses for communication to ensure clear and consistent communication with students and their families. And the line that's crossed off right now, I don't believe it should be crossed off, that teachers of students shall post all homework assignments to the Google Classroom. I think that's really important. I think that's important for communication. I think that's important for when our students are sick or whether or not we agree, but they go on vacations. So I would just like to, once again, just relook at this, get rid of the gray, make it a little bit more clear, and that's just sort of what I'm proposing.
So like consistency across the board, like
Yes.
everyone's submitting to
Yes,
Google
absolutely.
Classroom. I got you, okay.
And so in listening to that, the exceptions were based on specific programs, because not every program gives homework. So to me, words, in terms of all teachers. So if you're looking at all teachers, does that include our preschool disabled parent have to be posting homework if there's no homework?
No,
So I
if
think
you-
that's
right.
like, so
We
if
have
you're
to
in
call
a
it out,
program, I
yeah.
think that was language that I remember with last year, we looked at and we gave consideration with, and I know that working, with policy chairs and things, that there was a case where it was program specific, so there might be,
Do
if you
your
have a
preschool
speech.
teachers have a Google Classroom to communicate with parents?
It's an example, I don't know, but it was
Okay.
program specific based upon like the example that
Right.
was,
Because if, and I don't know if they do, but if they do, it's still just a great way to communicate with the parents as well. Obviously they have email, but it is just not even homework, just letting them know, oh, today's Spirit Day, or whatever communications they give. It's just another way of communicating. So, but yes, obviously if a teacher's not giving homework, I would think this whole policy then would not apply to them.
Okay.
Because it's it's a homework policy.
Okay.
Excellent, yeah, that's it for that, and then just the open discussion for cell phone storage.
Dr. Garabay is going to basically give us the results and go over this.
Cool.
Thank you. Oops.
My apologies, Mrs. Horowitz, I didn't send this to you, so I will make sure that you send this, what I just gave to the board. My apologies. So this was the survey that was provided to the families by Dr. Rigby as per the request at the February 19th. The second page has the results of the survey, okay, which has a 75% yes to 75.7 yes. Just noting too, 208 potential students, and you would take out the ones that may have 7th and 8th grade parents that are of 2. 74 responses for the week, with 24.3 no, not in favor. And then for the board's pleasure, I would say, but in terms of there were some that provided comments, I provided that for the board to be able to review as well, if you would like to do that with that. So those were the results. I think we had the survey. I think we can certainly have comments. I know that we're looking for a majority. We didn't get a majority response,
yeah,
but that is
so-
also indicative of surveys. I will tell you, that is a very typical pattern in response rate.
I have a question. Is this mandatory for the children to put their phones in that, or is it optional, the wording of the policy itself?
There's no policy change. This is a practice change. Remember, the policy would come, as a matter of fact, that was one thing I wanted to make clear, that if we were going to be changing a policy, we would have given, and wanted feedback on the policy, we certainly would have sent that language. This is about trying out, and then that pilot, this practice. So really, right, is it mandatory for the practice? The practice is the cell phone should be in the locker. We're going to give you an opportunity to store it there. If it's not there, it's in your locker, or that type of thing. So that's what we're looking to do in 7th and 8th grade. And then we'll take that feedback, again, continuing feedback. We'll put another survey out. If the board gives us the okay to go forward with it, then we'll take that feedback, and then policy language will come from that, if a policy language is going to change. Because that's what we said, there's, it needs updated, it needs to be looked at. And as we're moving into school boards as well, we're going to be changing it anyway. So I want to make sure that we're having what we want done. Okay?
Okay. I'm just reading over some of the comments.
I
A few of
noticed
them
that,
say that they're, oh, I'm sorry, Brian.
I noticed that there's one comment here that's adversely reflecting the Board of Ed, and they're indicating that if it's coming from the school, then we're fully supporting. If it's being instigated by the Board of Ed, then they are not in support. So that's interesting. That said, I'm looking at the message. The message is clear that it's coming from the school, and I appreciate the communication channels that you used. And I'm surprised that wasn't picked up in the actual message, but thank you. I appreciate the communication channel that was effectively used to get out this message.
Anybody else? Okay.
So I can look to the first meeting in April to give an update. We can put a survey out back to the community, to our parents again, and students and the teachers.
Okay.
I can provide that feedback, but I'd
Just
like
make-
to.
Just make sure, like we discussed, I just want to make sure I know that it was a little, I felt that it was a little skewed, that, when the actual question in the box came out, I
That I
obviously
support.
don't have it.
I support.
That's you-
Not it's mandated, I support.
Yeah, that you support having it as versus
Having the
saying-
option. I
Yeah,
support
I'm
having,
sorry.
I just.
Right, and I clarifying, and I'm sorry, when you were out, I mentioned this. We're not changing a policy. This is
No,
like,
that-
hey, let's try it out. So I didn't
Yeah.
want to, if we were doing policy language, we would certainly want to, to make it clear what we're asking someone to mandate to do. This is, you still have the two options. You were just trying it out. So I wanted to make sure everyone was still clear about that.
Thank you.
Okay.
But that's just the one question I have too, sorry. Is it like, the ultimate goal of it, do we want to mandate or give them option? What do you-
I think we would, we'll see how the pilot goes.
Yeah.
I think that's the choices we're looking at. Some parents, you'll see in there, you'll see in the
Yeah.
comments,
Oh, yeah.
felt strongly that no, they shouldn't even have it on them, right? And some feel strongly about no, why they want it on them. So I think this is that option in the looming background of a ban. Let's try to put something in place
Yeah.
that allows us to satisfy whatever the definition of word ban means.
Yeah, well,
When that comes
Guided
up with.
behavior instead
Right,
of
right.
mandate,
So, the goal, if you want to know from a philosophical point of view, the philosophical point of view is to encourage a student to detach and engage in the student learning environment and not feel
Yeah.
that they have to be there. Understanding, though, access is still important on many different levels for many different reasons, and wanting to find that happy medium, like we said.
I just want to make a comment here on this response here. It says, teachers should also put their phones away and focus only on teaching the lesson. It was brought to my attention by a number of students when this basically came out a few weeks ago, that the teachers have a record of having their cell phones out as well. So it's going to be very difficult to ask my daughter to not have her cell phone out while teachers are using their cell phones in the view of our students. So keep that in mind.
I want to just say one thing, though. I know that when there's lockdowns and there's certain procedures, as a teacher, I have to communicate through my cell phone. Now, obviously, if it's personal, that's very different, but there are times when there are reasons where a teacher might have a cell phone. So I just wanted to bring that up.
I think they should, have the right to do so, but the feedback that I received, that
Yeah.
was not happening, so.
Our teachers used to smoke in school, so we recall those days.
So did you, Rob, so did you.
I'd like to bring attention to this, the one comment. and I think it's a really good idea, and maybe something that we could maybe pilot as well too. I believe the entire policy needs to be revised. Students should be allowed to carry their cell phones in their Chromebook cases, and the pouch policy should be implemented as a consequence for students who fail to keep their phones in their Chromebook cases. I think that's a great idea, and I really agree with that, especially when you go back to times when we were kids, and if they saw our cell phones, they took it and put it in, and the teachers put it in their desk.
Yep.
So for putting it in a pouch like that is almost going back to that kind of mentality, that kind of thinking. And I think in an emergency situation, I think just as the president believes that students should have it on at all times in case of emergency.
Yeah.
And keeping it in their Chromebook cases, I think is a good compromise to that idea.
I think it teaches good behavior too.
Yeah.
You know, like
Responsibility. Make sure
Phone
you're not.
rules, yep.
Yeah.
I mean, other schools, not in our district, but, non-public schools, if they confiscate the phone, and then you have to pay to get the phone back. You have to go into school, and you have to pay a fine to get the phone back.
I used to have to find my
We're
teacher at-
definitely giving options here
Yeah.
versus,
Yeah. I used to have to find my teacher at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I had to find my teacher at the end of the day. You come find me. I'm not gonna tell you where I am. Come find me. So I don't know if that's something that Dr. Garibay, if that's an idea after this pilot, we could pilot it this way.
Listen, it could be something that we talk about as part of this. Is the pouch one is step one, right? And in
Yep.
terms of saying, like, let's do this, let's see how this works, and the issue, let's take this step, and then go for it, and then take the feedback, and I could come to you by March 19th and say, this is a disaster, we're pulling it, I'm not doing it, right? That could be feedback, and that could be a real thing, but we want to see it in action as an attempt to detach. So, and I think that's what you have to try. I think that's what we encourage our students to do, so I think we encourage a different way of approaching something that is a known, recognized issue, right, of people being detached to their cell phones, as well as disciplinary referrals for doing so.
Yep.
So I think that we want to
I agree.
not cultivate a school culture where kids are constantly being, I understand it's an issue, and we want parents to have, the communication, and students have their cell phones, and feeling though they shouldn't have them at all, but that's not necessarily always a reality. So let's create a culture and a practice that is addresses all concerns.
Excellent.
Or try one, at least try it. That's why I feel it.
Alrighty, okay, wrapping that up, there's nothing under negotiations or transportation, so we'll move right into personnel with Dr. Garibay.
Those are all just anticipating the things that are coming up on the 19th. That's a time we will have some movement going on. There are instructional assistants. One of the issues that's on there is regards to a nurse for an after-school program that that we're running at the primary school. There's a couple students with medical conditions, so they may be stipends where the role we're working with the families for that at this current time. So if more information is needed, but those just looking at recommendations moving forward into March 19th.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, I have a few things for new business, if I may, and then I will open it up to everybody else. Just to report out, Mr. Tobia, the chairman of the planning board, reached out to me last week to discuss adding 2 liaisons to his subcommittee to help gain insight with the affordable housing challenges. I appreciate his transparency and willingness to include this board with his discussions and decision that will affect all Colts Neck residents. I'm confident that his leadership and the ability to think outside the box will bring new vision and ideas on how we can satisfy the mandate, yet still keep Colts Neck, the Colts Neck we all love. With that being said, I have appointed Mr. Rob Scales, who serves as our board chair of Affordable Housing. Mr. Scales has put in countless hours researching and navigating possible outcomes when all of affordable housing mandates are completed. And I have also appointed Mr. Kevin Walsh. With Kevin's 27 years of public service to Colts Neck as a police officer and sergeant, he's familiar with police needs, traffic patterns, and a need for a strong relationship with our police department. Thank you both for taking on this appointment. I'd like to thank Mr. Tobia for including our Board of Education to hear their voices, despite Mr. Viola voting no to having committee liaisons. With that being said, Mr. Scarpa, if there's any reason that one of these two gentlemen cannot attend, can I have you as a fill-in to, okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Lastly, as Dr. Garibay mentioned, March 19th is going to be a fantastic meeting for our students. Like I said, I proposed earlier on this year to honor our honor roll students, our high honor roll students, and their great achievement. I want to spotlight them and let them know how proud we are of all the hard work that goes into becoming a high honor roll student. Me and Dr. Garibay and Dr. Beck also discussed honoring somebody that has a special needs program that has met their milestone or reached some time of achievement within their classroom studies. We are still working on that, and you know, we will report out on that. And also, I think we'll be, are we going to be representing the child at the thing I'm going to on Tuesday? There's a child at the Ocean Township High School. Okay, we'll be recognizing that person as well. So if you'd like to speak to that.
Yes, we have our Monmouth County School Boards years ago started an 8th grade dialogue where they have 8th graders who come together, and it's a great event where they meet every year, and they propose some questions about reflection before they move on to high school. And so Mrs. Volpe will be joining Dr. Rigby and myself and a student that was selected by teachers to represent and just have a great conversation. So that student, I don't want to give it away, that student will be invited to a board meeting to talk about his experiences. And just as a reminder, the meeting on the 19th is at primary school because it will be a large grouping of people. So parking will always be at a premium on nights that we're highlighting to students. So, but just as a reminder, that meeting it will be at. We will also on the 19th be introducing our 2025 student representatives to the board. So, and Mrs. Volpe is meeting with Dr. Rigby and I again next week on Wednesday to provide an overview of the program.
Yeah, I'm
And
excited to meet all the, you know, the new liaisons and see what kind of ideas that we're looking at for this year. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You have a lot of work ahead. You're going to be seeing a lot of me this week. So yes, if they're listening, we are so looking forward to meeting all of you. So.
With the mention of the student liaisons, we had talked about a few times about some kind of funding. Any new information just on?
Yeah.
I feel like I keep bringing it up, but
right,
I'm
yeah,
so
no,
excited.
it's fine. Mr. Marasco can speak to it a little bit more, but we reached out to our auditor, and he confirmed we probably shouldn't be doing a GoFundMe just because of the legal ramifications for it, but that's not an impossibility. So we're working with the auditor, I don't know if you want to speak to that, in setting up something for the board with regards to people being able to streamline, because we do accept donations. You know, we do accept it. It's a letter. The PTO does a legacy grant. We accept it on board resolutions, and it's for more formal proposals. But if it's simply a way of saying, you know, there's different methods out there, like they have donors chooses, those kinds of things that are also mechanisms that are put in place. So we're looking if people wanted to find a more streamlined to support specific events. I want us to just have a little bit more conversation about it, because I also want to be encouraging and supportive of our students, and I don't want it to be like a case where it just go into the student a fund of some kind, or are you picking something to fund? You know, I want to make sure everyone feels good about the work that they're proposing and all that stuff. So maybe a little bit more conversation about the structure of the actual funding itself, and then we can certainly find a mechanism that would be appropriate through the eyes of the auditor to do so. Yeah, with regards to internal controls, absolutely. Yeah, so it's more of like just a continuing conversation,
Yes,
but it's
that's
on
fine,
the
but
plate. It
right,
is on the
we're
plate.
moving forward,
Yes.
just baby steps
Yes.
right now.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, Angelique and I participated in a call with Bill Spadia, a Republican candidate in the upcoming governor election. We joined this discussion as private citizens, not in our capacity as Board of Education members, And during the call, Bill had emphasized the critical need for school boards to establish a parent's Bill of Rights. And given the importance of parental involvement in education, I believe this is a topic that our policy committee, Rob, sorry, back on you again, might want to consider exploring in the future. Okay. And then the last thing, so I had shared with Dr. Garibay my proposal of, putting this incrementally K to 2 and 3 to 5. So, she was obviously very well prepared with what I was going to say. So I just kind of thought about the data she shared. It took me a little bit to think about it. And I think that's wonderful that you have this data, but I just want to remind the board that we really want to be mindful when we compare teachers directly that way, or classrooms, because of the unique, composition of each class, factors like the number of tiered students, the special education needs in each class, the varying teacher skills and abilities. I mean, there's better teachers. All also influence this data. So for budgetary reasons, whatever we decide, I'm fully in favor of. I still do recommend maybe starting with K to 2, but I did like her feedback on that. The training is one group, so it's K to 2 is 3,000, 3 to 5 is 3,000. So it might be better to implement it if we decide to, again for budgetary reasons, split it. It might be better to just do K to 2 one year and then 3 to 5, and not do it as incrementally as I wanted. It's just sort of a play off of what you were saying. So that's my thoughts, and that's all for me from new business. So thank you.
And I will certainly link all of that. In terms of just having the data, I want to make sure the board has it, so I'll certainly share everything that was there with it. So you can internalize it and, look at it more.
Anybody else for,
Yeah, real quick, I'd just like to thank President Volpe for updating the layout of the table, so every board member has the opportunity to be seen on screen. Thank you very much.
I'll be honest, even though I put the request in, Dr. Garibay and her staff were very kind to reorganize the layout, so I want to thank them.
Thank you guys as well then.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for being so accommodating.
Great, thank you, Mr. Agneta. Anybody else for new or old business? Oh, I'm sorry.
I know, we just got them.
It's not in the budget. Bob.
So, Mrs. Horowitz, Mrs. Volpe, Dr. Beck, and I have attended the parent advisory committees, and I know that Dr. Beck has been partners with me for 2 years as we've been going through, so now we're a year and a half into it. And one of the things that we've been talking a lot about, and even at the board level, has been Chromebook screen time, all of the things that we've been talking about, and hearing feedback from parents on pretty looking at it from way. So one of the things that hearing the viewpoints of different parents and having the time that's spent from there, I would like to propose to the board allowing us to work together to put together something specifically maybe for the K to 2 level, where we really do a deep dive as a team. And when I say as a team, I mean with stakeholders at the table, board members, parents, teachers at the table, where we say to ourselves, okay, again, looking at the resources that are used, but also the value and what we're doing. Because if there's teachers come out today trained and ready for using technology. They do. It's part of their course requirements for being a teacher these days. And the fact that they're, using it is different from when I taught, definitely self-admittedly. And we want to work together to put together something with regard that is also recommended for screen time for the American Association of Pediatrics, but also blending. We talk about balance. So I recommend as a team, as a group of stakeholders, that we define what balance means. What does that mean? Rather than saying, okay, it's this much a day no matter what. Let's work together to do that. So I would like.
Interrupt you?
Yeah.
When you talk about this, the problem wasn't so much in the K through second. It was more in the elementary.
I think it was. I think it was.
I don't think they're on. Like I said, I'm not in the classroom, but I don't think the complaints were coming from the K through second grade.
So I think there was a combination of things that we're working internally on. I think sometimes 3 to 5 we were looking at consistency, and I brought that back with Dr. Reynolds, who was working with people. And Sarah wants to comment too. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the same thing that you said, Dr. Garibay, that it was a lot of feedback that it was K through through 2, and I mean, I know with having a first grader myself, I have similar, concerns, the way that a lot of these younger grades do. So that was definitely a big concern, was the amount of screen time for K through 2.
Okay, maybe that was last year.
Could have been.
Okay.
So, but there's always feedback that's good about consistency and whatnot, which can be another component of it. But I say let's take a deep dive together as a group and then have that work. Use research-based practices, talk about it, and then make it part of a goal moving in throughout the year where we have scheduled meetings with teachers, stakeholders, people, and everything. And as a board, we come together and say, this is our product. I think at the end of the year, because I think taking into consideration the tools that are available to teachers, the tools that the teachers want to use, they've embraced in using, while also balancing that point of view, I think it makes it a collective community project that everyone can be proud of at the end of the year. That's just my opinion.
Okay, I appreciate your initiative on this, so thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
I know you've been working on the entry. It's called Updates in the Innovations in Special Education Award. And I received an email today, I think all the board members did, and it was just a reminder that it's due March 21st. So once again, are there any more updates on that? And it's actually due at 4:30 p.m. on March 21st, right? Did everyone get that email about it? It's a Innovations in Special Education Awards. Am I the only one getting these emails? Yes, yes.
Yes.
So,
We
how
had,
are
I know that
are we
Dr.
able
Beck
to-
is
I
working
know,
diligently with staff
yes.
for the submission of that. And we are proposing, it's no secret, we won a national award for our ABLES program and work in physical therapy and interventions that we're doing there. That is the program we're going for because it has the most detail, the most data, and it also has record of some really great student data that we'll be able to present. So that will be the program that we're recommending. And although we are commonly known for working right up to deadlines, I assure you, you have my word, it will be submitted right until before it's due.
Is there a way of when it's submitted, either way, like maybe the public being able to see some of this? Maybe like could Dr. Beck or you present some of it at, it doesn't have to be everything at
The
a board meeting,
application or just the actual,
Sort of just all the work that went in and, just.
To the application?
Yes, like.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, we'll tout it out as much as you want. We can, actually, I can share, if you want, I can share the presentation that Dr. Beck and I did at a National School Boards Association conference. We were selected to present it in Florida 2 or 3 years ago at this point.
All right. No,
So
I'm more
we can
interested
share.
in what you're
The
doing.
application?
For the award, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Personally, but yeah, thank you. 'Cause I like I said, I looked through it and.
Listen, anytime we get to brag about what we're doing, I'll take it. It's
Okay,
fine,
great.
absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'd love to learn about it. So
Sure.
thank you.
Sure.
Okay, just looking at the time, 8:30, we're doing very well for this CalDIS. Thank you for all prioritizing your chair positions. Okay, if there's no other new business, we're just going to open up the floor to comments for attending constituents for the last time this evening on all subjects. Please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You're welcome to do so. Just, can you turn your mic on, please?
Hello, testing. Wait,
Yeah, it's on.
I can't hear it though. Can you hear me?
No, it's not amplified, it's through the speaker, so you
All right. Okay. All right. Okay, so don't start my time yet. Okay, my name is Alice Finney on 96 Five Points Road. I want to just commend the board for all that you're doing, and I love that that you passed that women's sports and no men and women's sports rule policy. I forget the name of it, but I'm just reading up recently on Peyton McNabb from high school that was violently hit with a volleyball, and it even gave her a concussion and some brain damage. So that was only high school, and it ruined her college career and all that, and I think it's just a great precedence. I would love to continue talking about it, but you guys had so much that I wanted to just ask you some questions. I think it's a great idea, and I wanted to also commend Mrs. Camera for, I know she ran on trying to elevate our schools to the blue ribbon status, and I know that it sounds like a lot of the information that she's working on with the curriculum committee is looking towards that. I also like the idea of, it's always difficult as a parent to find the students' information for each class. I know with my son, is it in Google Classroom? Is it on their website? Did he put it in his book bag? Where is the information for that subject? So I think for me as a parent to go to one place and know it's in Google Classroom, I guess I can have access as a parent, invite guardians to get in there, that I could observe that and find it all in one place to be able to find if that child has homework. So I think that's an excellent idea. I just gave up, honestly, with my son, and I think he would have been a much better student if I was a little bit more on top of him. He was very bright, and he really did well in school. He got by because he tested really well, and he told me later, you know, Mom, I rarely did my homework in high school. I was like, oh my goodness. So it would help because we're busy. Some people are busy. You know, I work as a working parent, so it's always, that would be a big advantage. Okay, and now I would like to just take, let's talk about the cell phones in the pockets. Well, I've been a teacher in high school, and the cell phones are a huge problem. Our middle school had kept the cell phones in the lockers, and when they came to high school, we got a little advantage on the freshmen. But what happens is that the kids are really addicted to these cell phones, and sometimes they'll even put, I shouldn't say what they're going to do, but they will put cases or second phone or all sorts of things in there, and then they'll say, oh, I'm talking to my mom. I mean, it gets really out of hand. I think in the lockers is the best. If they can handle putting in the backpack, the good students will. But there are kids that are not going to. And then you're also at the risk of bullying, where kids had an emotional issue, something happened during lunch, they're looking at their cell phones, and then it affects them. They may not be doing it for academics. I just recommend just keep it out of the classroom. You can try it, but it's a mess when it gets to high school, and we're all having problems. And then they have so many write-ups that the administration, we feel, a lot as teachers, administration doesn't do much. So I really think, and it also interrupts the teacher's instruction. Sally, you didn't put your cell phone away, or you need to, or take it or put it on my desk. Now I have to get my thoughts back on where I was. And then you have another student, because once one of them is doing it, then the other ones start to follow. And I just really highly recommend, don't even start it. They're kids. And another thing that was mentioned about, the teacher's using a cell phone. I have a food order that comes into my school, and on that day, I tell them, I said, listen, I got to check my cell phone. Teachers are different than kids, and I really want to get away from this, that we're on an equal plane. You know, they can have that rule, and teachers should be allowed to change the rules. I tell them, listen, I'm allowed to change the rules. You think I made you a promise. Well, something came up, and I'm the boss, and I can make the rules. So I really think that you guys, have to remember that. A lot of the problems in our world right now are that parents are letting kids do whatever they want, and they think they have a right to make this decision. Oh, they need to feel good. I think we'd be much better if we set some standards and some boundaries and say, and let them understand it's okay. Well, that's a teacher, and they're allowed to make the rule. And when I call home, it's because I'm really having a problem with that child. And the child will go to the parent, and the parent will say, well, my child said that you did this, instead of standing up for the teacher because there was an issue there. And anyway, don't get me started, you already did. So please reconsider that, because I think you're going to have a lot of problems. And also, we need to teach the kids social skills, because sometimes they go to the phone because they're bored, and we see it. You could watch, you have 5, 10 kids in the room, and kids are going to be all of a sudden taking out on their downtime. They think they have this thing on their downtime. It's almost like smoking. It's like when you I used to say smoking was like putting a menu in front of you so that you don't have to deal with the other people in here. So the more we can teach our kids those social skills, and to talk to other kids, or to take out a book if they had to in the downtime. Because I really think if they have their Chromebooks, they really don't need their phones. They don't. if you want to say, get it out of the lockers, they have to be in a backpack or something that they can't access it. But, you know, I still think that you're playing with fire there. Okay. And I'd also like to mention one more real quick thing to consider in the curriculum area in the future, and I want to talk about it in the future, to introduce the theory of creation into the science department, because it is a theory, and evolution is a theory, and I think that it's amazing some of the intricate things that we can find in nature that are indicate that there's an intelligent designer. So that's it for that. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very, very much for your input and your comments tonight. Thank you.
If I may, and
Yeah.
I certainly want to appreciate the fact that we have this open forum and 2 opportunities during our meetings for the public to hear the public. That's the exact reason why we set this up. Your comments are absolutely spot on and extremely valuable for our board as we develop this. I do want to lean on, I actually have a question. I believe we have a policy, and just checking on this, when Dr. Rigby was presenting it, we have a policy that all cell phones should be in their lockers, but as an alternative, this is used as a sort of like a safety net for teachers, because they've gone to the disciplinarian state keeping and policing it. So there's another option. Okay, now that it's out of the locker, here's the second option to throw in. I believe that's what I heard as an alternative. That's why it was structured this way. It's not being driven, forget the locker, put it towards a pocket. It's still about trying to be in the locker as much as we possibly can. But because these students don't pay attention sometimes, you know, it's another alternative for the teacher to leverage while it's on the fly, if you will. Check me on that. Is that the approach?
That's correct. There's actually 2 policies. One is older and deals with a cell phone. It says that they have to be away and all those things, which we need to revise as it's being combined. The other one is about electronic recording devices, of which a cell phone is, which is the newer one that has to be away in a locker. So because a cell phone, an iPhone, or whatever, all phones today, you carried, most phones, I don't want to generalize, carried by phones today, by children today have a recording ability to it. They are supposed to be away in the lockers. So yes, you are correct in what you were saying as an alternative.
Dr. Garber, the constituent also mentioned social skills. Is that something that SEL will do to try and get kids to focus away from their phones and to talk to each other?
So that wasn't something that was brought up, and we talked a lot about that in the Parent Advisory Committee, which we talked about, which is that last year a recommendation that was made that we put into place at the end of the year was no Chromebooks at indoor recess, right? And so having activities, just as you said, books, talking to each other, and we really liked the feedback that we received from some of the parents that there were growing pains. Some students were not happy about that they couldn't have their Chromebooks at recess. They were not. But now one parent shared their child designed during indoor recess the kickball game that was going to take place outside, right? Put that together. They're reading, they're playing games, they're doing all of those things. So there will be growing pains, and we know that. That's why this is a pilot, but you are correct. So our positive action curriculum that we use is all about interpersonal skills, and it is about communication, it is about social skills. That is one of the things that we really embraced about the program itself. And we even said that if whether it's character education, whatever it is, it's about being good people, communication, conflict resolution. Those are the things that we concentrate here on in supporting. So yes, to all of that, yes.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I'm good. Okay. Hi, Mallory Reardon, 165 Laird Road. Just to piggyback real quick on what Mr. Rugnetta just said, yes, I can personally vouch for the SEL program, helping my son with social skills, learning how to lose, learning how to collaborate with other students on like a project, and everyone got to pitch their own ideas, and they had to learn how to accept that their idea might not be the one that was chosen and still go forward on it with, working on the project with someone else's idea. So me personally, I've definitely seen that out of our programming. But I wanted to speak to something that Ms. Volpe said earlier in the meeting with the cut to the amount of aid that we're going to get this year. I think that is an issue that can appeal to our entire town, no matter which side of the political spectrum that you're on. And I just thought that how you said you felt like maybe Colts Neck was being punished. I just looked really quickly at some other towns, some of the other numbers. So Toms River Regional District actually got a 6% raise in funding. Who else did I look at? Middletown Township, also another conservative area, got a 6% increase. And then actually I also noticed that Red Bank Borough, which is, I believe that is a primarily Democratic town, they took a 3% cut in funding. So I just really wanted to encourage you that this doesn't need to be like a Republican versus Democrats thing, or that our town's being punished. I think, like I said, this is an issue that everybody in the town could get behind, and it doesn't really have to be about politics. It can just be about wanting what's best for our kids and not wanting them to lose funding. So, thank you.
Absolutely. I definitely think it's a bipartisan topic, and I agree. It doesn't have to be either side. And I'm hoping that Senator Vinko-Paul will definitely have some answers for us, even though he is on the opposite side of the political aisle as I am, that he will come up with some type of advocating for us, and I'm looking forward to meeting him and discussing it. So thank you very much. I appreciate your input.
May I
Yep.
add one thing? So I think what really frustrates probably our superintendent as well as board members and as well as probably all residents is that the state will not release the mysterious funding formula they used to make these calculations. There's a lack of transparency. So I agree with everything both of you said, but I wish there was some way that we could figure out, see the math that's being done for all these towns. I just, again, we want transparency on every level, and we should hold the state to the same, to the same standard of releasing that formula, so we all know how it's done.
I don't disagree with that. Transparency is always a great thing. I just don't want it to turn into like we think Governor Murphy's punishing us, when I don't think that's it. I'm just really sad that we lost funding, So.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Reardon. Anybody else like to come up and make a comment on any or all subjects? Nobody else? Okay, let's close comments from attending constituents. I'm going to make a motion to move into executive session. No action will be taken at this time. And we want to thank everybody for attending tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, no more than, yeah, it's for litigation, and Dr. Garibay is informing me it'll be about no more than 10 minutes. All right, can I get a motion to move into executive session? Brian Scarpa
Second.
and Mr. Regnado. Okay, thank you very much.
All in favor?
Yep,
Opposed? Motion carried.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and what was it? It was 2 hours and 15 minutes?